here again with Maurice Peoples. This is our third episode, and we're going to continue where we left it off with understanding heat zones. So, where we got cut off last time, Maurice, was at a crucial point. We discovered that like 50% of the problems with the plants was dealing with the heat on the plants. And so
Correct.
that's a pretty good percentage, especially, down here it's like, okay, all of these problems with the plants, and we keep thinking it's pests and diseases. So you have a little bit more information on that.
Right. So, like I said, 1977, they created a heat zone map. Um, the hardiness zone map is basically dealing with cold tolerance in plants and how they can handle the winter and if they can come through the winter or not. Heat zone, we're going to be talking about how plants handle the heat in your area and so forth. And 86 degrees Fahrenheit is kind of the magic number. And the issue is, as temperatures get warmer, plants start losing more water through transpiration. And that causes them, of course, to dehydrate. So the way that the plant tries to prevent dehydration is it has microscopic pores on the bottom of the leaves and in the stems, and they regulate how much water loss and so forth the plant loses. So when it gets hotter, the plant, those stomata close down. They're open any other time, but when it gets really hot, then they close down. So that prevents water loss through the plant. It also, when we talk about plants have photosynthesis, that's how they make their food and so forth. When those pores are open, they pull in CO2, okay, because they need CO2 for that process. They also release oxygen for us through those pores, okay, when they're open. Um, so when those pores close down, then there's less CO2 being taken into the plant. So the plant is starting to shut down.
Is that
Okay.
irregardless of irrigation?
Irrigation will help. Okay. And that's part of that is some of the ways to help to prevent that is irrigating like early in the morning so that before temperatures get really hot. So then you don't have so much evaporation and loss during the day because of that. Um, Mulching, okay, helps to hold moisture in the soil. So that helps to prevent some of that process. Um, mm, I got thrown off there when you were asking me a question. So yeah, so that basically will help. The other thing is when we're doing irrigation, we want to irrigate in the morning because for some plant material, if you're getting water and so forth from the leaves, um, then those water droplets on the leaves can kind of magnify, okay, and burn the leaves when that hot sun is out. So you want to be careful on when your irrigation and how you irrigate, um, basically around the roots and not so much on the leaf surface. Um, Also, when the temperatures get really hot, the cells start to break down inside the plant. Okay. So that causes issues with the plant. And like I said, 86 degrees seems to be that magical number that you have, that the plant can handle heat up until that point in time. And then after 86 degrees, now the plant starts to struggle on its own. So we have to do different things to try to help alleviate that, like you say, with irrigation, um, uh, mulching to help hold moisture in the soil, watering earlier in the day so that the plant has enough moisture in it to help to alleviate some of those issues.
Okay, so even with irrigating in the morning, mulching, the sun is hot. It's well above 86 degrees. Could that be one of the things, a lot of times around here, the tomato plants, and they look like they're blighted. And so, I'm wondering, is that really blight, or is that, for lack of a better term, heat stroke?
Could be either or. I mean,
Okay,
yeah, and
okay,
not not seeing the plant or whatever. Usually, if it's going to be excuse me, a heat thing, you're going to have drooping of the leaves. You're not maybe going to have discoloration on the leaves, but you're going to have drooping on the leaves and so forth. Whereas with the blight, you're gonna see other things on the leaves, um, and you have early blight and you have late blight. So depending on what time of the season it is, depends on what kind of blight and so forth you're going to be having.
okay, okay.
Um, when we think of plants in the desert, they have spines on them. Those are their modified leaves. And the spines, you have less water loss, or because you don't have that, like those tomato like that. The leaves aren't as broad and so forth, so you have less movement, like even air and so forth, pulling stuff
Okay.
out of
Mm-hmm.
the plant. Okay, you don't have that with spines, and so in the desert they're getting 3 to 5 inches of rain a year. So that's the way that they have, through evolution and so forth, have come through that. And they store a lot of water when they get in there. That tissue and so forth stores a lot of water in the plant to begin with.
Okay. Okay. So
Okay.
so with that, like, we'll have really hot weather, obviously here in East Texas, and so is it would with dealing with the heat, would a windbreak be of benefit to help in the transpiration?
Sure. Because with the windbreak, um, you're not pulling moisture and so forth out of the plant. That's another thing that helps to pull moisture and so forth out of the plant. Even when it's cooler, it's still pulling moisture and so forth out of the plant.
Okay.
Okay, through natural transpiration, there's some water open and it's pulling moisture and so forth kind of out of the plant and so forth. So you still need to replenish the water level in the soil because
Yes.
of that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay,
Right. So even more so because of the wind if you don't have some sort of a windbreak.
correct,
Okay.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I I I I I don't think there's anything else that we really need to
Okay.
talk about. Okay,
With
as
that,
far as
so
that.
we
But I wanted to go back real quick. During the last session, you had asked me a question about what are significant crops that are biennials.
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and we couldn't really think of anything. Um, and it kind of bothered me. So I was checking on it, and then when I started checking on it, I'm going, duh. Um, yeah. Um, so these are some examples. And when I start talking about it, You'll think the same thing. Okay, onions are a biennial. Okay, but we don't wait for the second year because we use the bulbs. Okay, so like onions and leeks, um, any type of root crop, beet, radishes. Those are all things that are horseradish, parsnips. They're all like biennials. They would flower the next year, but we're not growing them for the flower. We're
Right.
growing them for the root crop. Okay.
Okay.
Um, Cabbage family. Cabbage. We don't grow it for the flower. It would flower the next year, but we're harvesting it the first year. Brussels sprouts. We're harvesting it the first year. Um, Swiss chard. We're harvesting it the first year. Okay.
Okay. So would there be a benefit, let's say, from a seed harvesting standpoint, to let some of those crops just go ahead and go to seed and harvest the seed?
Um, you could, I guess, depending on what you're growing. Now, see, some of the issue is with some of those crops, when it gets really hot, they start to bolt.
Correct. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. So they're bolting.
Okay,
So
they
yeah.
start to bolt. So you still have to keep growing them on to let them. I don't see the benefit of it when you can just go out and purchase seed pretty easily. It's not like, to me, like saving tomato seed or pepper seeds or whatever that you're collecting. I don't know if there's a benefit to it or not. There might be,
Yeah.
but I don't
Yeah.
know if there's a real benefit to it. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, with your herbs like parsley and dill, those all, coriander, we would collect that seed the next year. You could do that, but we're harvesting it during that growing season.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carrots are another one. You know, when you think of Queen Anne's lace, which is wild carrot, and we consider it a weed, um, it's the second year bloom that you see that flower. Carrots would go to bloom the second year, but we're harvesting that carrot before it goes to bloom, you know, the
Hmm.
second season.
Okay.
So there are some stuff there that,
Yeah,
like,
a lot of our people, we get into seed harvesting, especially on things that we like that are heirloom, not necessarily
mm-hmm,
hybrid, because with the hybrid, you're not sure what you're going to get from that seed next time.
correct. It's 50%,
Yeah,
one or the other. Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah,
you're not sure what you're going to get, so you better like either or. But
that's correct.
on the heirlooms, we're big on in the seed collection.
Right,
and
right,
and and also part of what we do is to be to be prepared for, hey, what if you can't just go get seed next spring? What if there's a problem? What's the,
right,
okay, so it's always good to have a backup. It's always good to have, and that's kind of one of our motives with it as well.
right. And as long as it's like, when they're buying plants for doing that, and that was another session that I was going to have maybe with some of the definitions. If it's open pollinated, okay, then it's pretty safe to say that you can collect that seed
Yeah.
and you're going to have the same plant year in and year out.
Yeah, great point.
Or something very similar to it that you really wouldn't notice the difference.
Yeah,
Okay.
great
So,
point.
like you said, if it's an F1 hybrid, okay, now it's going to be 25 to 50% of that seed is going to be what the plant you want to have versus one of the appearance that you're going to have
Right.
when you select that seed.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay.
so back to unless you had something else to add to that, I'm thinking back to we were talking about a windbreak and that kind of a thing, which kind of could lead us right into our next topic, which is what are microclimates?
Okay. So microclimate, basically the definition for a microclimate is a set of atmospheric conditions that are different than the surrounding area. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So quickest way, the easiest thing to say on a hot day, if you go sit underneath a big tree, it's going to be cooler underneath that tree than it is if you're sitting outside of that tree.
Mm-hmm.
So the conditions under that tree is different than what's outside the shade of that tree.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, factors that affect microclimates are sunlight and shade, um, water conditions, surrounding water conditions,
Mm-hmm.
um, because that can make the atmosphere more humid versus dry, okay, in the surrounding areas. Another factor would be, of course, temperatures, and a lot of that depends on direction, so exposure.
Right.
So you're in full sun, but eastern exposure, okay, gets morning sun, okay, then it cools down because, of course, the sun is going to the west. So anything on the western side of like a wall or a house or whatever is going to be warmer in the afternoon. And they consider that the hottest part of the day. It is the hottest part of the day, but those plants or whatever growing on that western side exposure has been much cooler. And now, when you get to the hottest part of the day, it kind of gets a little shock on it
Yeah.
because now it's being exposed to sun later in the day versus a southern exposure that has sun all day, but those plants have had sun on them all day. So they've acclimated throughout the day. Not that it's not hotter than on a western exposure, but I just think it's, once again, they're just talking about how, okay, it might be a little bit of a shock to them when they come in
Right.
late afternoon. Okay. And the northern exposure, of course, really has very little sunlight on it at all. So that's the coolest part of any exposure throughout the whole day.
Right. So and then and at some point we can probably get into this. You know, what you sparked in my head was also stress factors for the plant materials. You know, like you gave one example there, and we can get into that later. But I think that microclimates play a pretty good role in stress factors depending on what plant material you're using. Like you said, okay, you know it might just be a hill, it might be a hedgerow, it might be a building, it could be any structure or obstruction from sunlight, and height and depth, you know, properties that have little valleys like in them, there's a different climate down there in that lower area, correct?
Correct, correct. And so, yeah, we're good. The next thing I was going to go to airflow.
Yep.
So, like, we could put a wall up, or you could put a hedgerow up, courtyards that people have, or whatever. Um, they all affect, how humid it's going to be, how dry it's going to be. So, if you want to put up a wall, and like you kind of alluded to, how high up that wall is. If it's 6 foot high, on a southern exposure, you're breaking it up. Um, that northern exposure, the higher the wall up, of course, how far out away from that fall is going to be
Right.
considered much cooler,
Mm-hmm.
and much more shaded and so forth in that
Mm-hmm.
area. Um, let's see here. Um, even like you put a pergola up, okay? Um, Even if it's open slats, it's still going to break the sunlight coming in. It's going to give you a little bit of shading and so forth in that particular area that you're sitting in. Um, so you could even do that. So now you can have some more shade loving plants and so forth in that area because it's being now it's partial shade instead of maybe being full shade. I
Right.
mean, excuse me, full sun
Yep.
in that area. Um, so some of the classic things that they when they talk about microclimates, they'll talk about um, urban microclimates.
Yeah, that's big. Yep.
Okay, and so they call it the urban heat sink. So we know basically when you live in the city, it's going to be warmer in the city than you are out in the country, and that's because the buildings absorb heat, asphalt absorbs heat, uh, concrete absorbs a little bit of heat, but it reflects a lot of heat. So in the evening time, it stays much warmer there than it does out in the country that doesn't have all that because that temperature loss is very quick.
Right.
And they were talking about, um, I was reading an article, San Francisco has, because of its topography, um, its location next to the bay, um, and the topography is basically, you see all these movies where they have these chases in the hills and so forth
Right.
in San Francisco. Um, they have 25 different heat zones in the city of San Francisco
Oh my goodness.
because of the topography and the bay and the buildings and so forth.
Yeah.
Um, and we experienced this when I was younger. We'd go out to San Francisco, and we were San Francisco Giants fans, and we'd go to the ballpark in a candlestick that was right on the bay. Now the new ballpark is on the base, but I don't know how it faces. The first time we went out there, we went to a night game, and of course it's 70 degrees, and we go to the ballpark, and we were freezing in the ballpark because the temperatures were 20 to 25 degrees lower at night in the ballpark because the way the wind came off the bay and into the ballpark. So, I mean, and this was in August. And so we learned that,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
yeah, while we're
Wow.
visiting and knowing the difference there. Not knowing basically, but knowing you're on the water, but
Yeah. Wow. Just
not knowing.
man, it's too bad they built a city there. Just think of what you could grow with that typography and that location.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing is you have your forest microclimates. Okay, and basically that's the canopy of the trees. Okay, going to stop sunlight coming in. Okay, it's going to be more humid. Um, the ground level, because there's less light coming in, is going to stay cooler. So that's a different microclimate and so forth that you have there.
Right.
Uh, Another different type of microclimate is, okay, if you live near large bodies of water, like lakes or rivers, um, oceans, or whatever, because water heats up and cools down slower than land. So, like here, we have Lake Erie. So, people living near Lake Erie, okay, it takes a little bit warmer for the lake to warm up in the spring, but in the fall, that water doesn't cool down as quick as the land farther away from the lake. So that extends your growing season because the lake, of course, is bringing in warm
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
air movement and so forth off the lakes. So, like you were saying, if you're living near water or whatever, that can affect what your microclimate is also.
Yeah, I mean, and it
Okay.
could be as small as it could be a pond. You know,
That's right.
yeah, it could be a pond where the wind blows across it. For
Right.
the
I mean, it could just be a small stream,
right.
not a big river, but yeah,
But
that's going to
even with
affect it.
that, whether it's a pond or a stream, then there's also the hill, the topography. Then there's also the any canopy that might be there, and any
Right.
other windbreaks that might be around there, and all of those things are contributing to that microclimate. And
Correct.
so what do you think about even altering, like your own garden or area, um, by altering it by creating microclimates? I mean, is that something that's feasible? Something that could be wise?
Well, real quick, the topography, we were talking about the hill, or the top of the hill, of course, is going to be warmer down in the valley because, as we know, in the evening time or even during the day, warm air rises, cool air sinks,
Mm-hmm.
and so in the evening time, you're having those cold pockets at the lower part of the hill, okay, causing a temperature drop versus at the top of the hill. Um, when you're a south facing slope, of course, is going to have is going to be warmer than the northern slope on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So things are going to grow better, or you have to be conscious of what you're planting and so forth in those locations just because of that exposure. Same thing, northern exposure. I mean, eastern exposure, you're going to have sun during the day and things that you want to grow that need full sun. Okay. 6 hours or more direct sunlight is considered full sun.
Okay.
So if you get all morning exposure with an eastern exposure, that's full sun. No shading or anything like that. It's just direct sun. A western exposure is going to be 6 hours or more
It's still full sun.
in the evening. It's still
Okay.
full sun.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So it's still going to be hot. So that's what you have. And of course, the southern exposure, you got sun all day. So those are the things that you're kind of thinking about in
Yeah. So you're looking at your existing climate and microclimates, and if you have certain goals of what plant material you want to grow, then um, it would be feasible. You could alter some things, and you could alter things by creating microclimates, to achieve the goals that you have.
sure, sure,
Okay.
sure. Now, one of the other major microclimates is a greenhouse
Yes.
where you control everything. Okay, so that you're controlling light, temperature, humidity, and so forth. So quote, that's the major microclimate that you have control over and so
Yes.
forth.
Yeah. And
Would,
so,
would be
you saying that, we will probably do at least one full session, especially based on your experience and expertise on greenhouses.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's well worth it. A lot of our people here either have at least a small greenhouse or are planning to for propagation and plant starts and things like that. And
Uh-huh.
easily growing year round down here in our climate. But yeah, so that's just forewarning. We're going to be doing a greenhouse thing. Okay.
so, these were some practical examples that I had for microclimates.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so
So we've got so we don't end up having another problem. We've got about 30 seconds left.
okay,
Yeah, before it goes so fast when we get to talking. So
okay, yeah.
yeah. So anyway, with that, we're going to. Are there things that we need to continue with microclimates, or do we want to get into soils next time? What would you like to do?
Um, we can. There's just a handful of things that are practical for examples that they may be doing for microclimates. Okay, that they could be doing now.
Perfect.
So like raised beds would be considered a microclimate.
Okay, well then
Okay,
let's jump into that next time.
that's
We'll
right.
just start right there. We'll just keep continuing this thing going. We don't have to stop at any particular time.
Right,
So
but there's not that. There's really not that much more.
okay,
I mean, a little bit more, and we can go to a few examples,
yeah, I
and
think
then we can go into
yeah,
we can start into soils.
some of those will be key. Well, thank you again, Maurice. Sure appreciate you, and looking forward to next time.
Okay,
All right,
talk to you later.
all right, bye.